This is Scotty Reed with a Black Talk Radio News Report. And on this particular report, I want to examine some of the myths surrounding integration. Now, I don't know who came up with the name integration for the 1964 Civil Rights Act, but it really was not about any kind of black people wanting to be with white people or anything like that. That is a fake history that is being told to you by individuals or passed down from individuals in the black community who were profiting from segregation. They were profiting because you were bought into their ideology and you were taking all your money and you were giving it to them, or you was buying the little trinkets and stuff that they have for you. So, but in terms of poverty, there was widespread poverty for black people prior to integration, and that poverty still continues to this day. We don't have as many people. It's not as bad, I should say, as in the 1800s, coming right out of slavery and into Jim Crow. It's not that bad, but it is kind of bad for a lot of people, for millions of people, regardless of their skin color in this country. But primarily, if we want to talk about the time period before integration, then there is a documented history there. And all day today and over the past few days, I've been hearing all these people repeating the myth that integration destroyed everything in the black community. Look, I got educated today. I'm always open to new information and looking up stuff and continuing to read and educate myself, because your enemy is not really going to educate you on everything that you need to know. And so today I was enlightened to the fact that segregation did destroy the black education infrastructure that we had, even though we didn't have all the things that we needed in terms of resources for our school children. They still had educated teachers who truly did care to see them succeed, especially living under the harsh conditions that they were living under. They knew that these children had to be educated to make it in a white man's world, to borrow a phrase. But what it did, so integration did destroy black schools, and black schools are still being shut down to this day. And I would have to say that even some of our black teachers don't truly care about the children. It's just a 9-to-5 job to them. I'm not making a sweeping indictment of all educators, but I'm just saying. So I will concede that education, black education, that institutional community school was destroyed by integration. Black teachers started being fired as they started consolidating schools and what have you. So I will say that we are still suffering from that damage. But now, in terms of black businesses, this is what I keep hearing: that we had everything that we needed before old Dr. King came along with and them handkerchief head Negroes, and they messed up a good thing. You know, Jim Crow was really good for black people. I mean, this is basically what people are saying. And it is straight up ignorance. They are just repeating lies that have been put out there by black segregationists. And some of these black segregationists was secretly and sometimes in the open working with the Ku Klux Klan and white nationalists. They don't believe me. Read the history on these individuals, okay? Y'all know who I'm talking about. And them black segregationists didn't have a problem with working with white nationalists, because the black segregationists, again, they were profiting. When Dr. King went to the South and was fighting for people's rights to be recognized, not for rights to be given to them. They were born with rights as human beings, but for their rights to be recognized. And if they were going to be taxed and called citizens of the United States, then they should enjoy the full benefits of that. And so, but the whole thing about black businesses, we had all these black businesses, and before integration came along, we was doing just fine, and we was recycling the black dollar, and we would just really had everything that we needed. That is a flat out lie. It's a lie, and I challenge anyone to post some book recommendations or some articles on the different time of this great time period for black businesses in the United States. Okay, don't tell me, show me the work of academics and researchers to prove what you're saying, that we had all these black businesses that was employing millions of black people all across the South, all in the West, all in the North, just on the East Coast, that we had all. Where are these businesses? What were their names? I know people like to bring up Black Tulsa. Let's be real about Black Tulsa. It wasn't the entire city. It was not the entire city of black people who had created all these businesses, and they were totally self-sufficient. No, it was a few blocks, a few city blocks in Tulsa, where this black community was an enclosed, self-sufficient community, and they had everything they needed. I've heard, and I don't know why people call it Black Wall Street, why you want to emulate the slave markets of New York. Why? Okay, but I'm not going to go off on that tangent, but we had other places called Black Wall Street, like Durham, North Carolina, in the state that I'm in. That was only a few businesses, only a few families that was creating businesses, hired a few people, and they were pretty prosperous until, like Tulsa, white people came along and destroyed what these people had built. But those were far and few, okay, these so-called Black Wall Streets. Okay, the only ones I know about is the one in Durham, they called it a Black Wall Street, and the one in Tulsa, okay, and those were destroyed. But those were not widespread all across the United States. There were not Black Wall Streets funding. If you want to call it a Black Wall Street, what is Wall Street? Wall Street is the New York, it started off as a slave trading platform on Wall Street in New York. But then it later morphed into a capitalist machine to where people can invest in different companies to give those companies capital. Those companies start producing a product or providing the services, and if the company grows, then it will be able to hire a bunch of people. It'll also be able to produce a profit for the shareholders. We ain't never had no Black Wall Street like that. So let's just keep it real. I don't know how that name came about, who came up with that name, Black Wall Street, but it is incorrect, as it was not a Wall Street. It was a small black community that had black-owned businesses, had churches, had schools, and they were able to survive in that environment, but they were still surrounded by white people. But all of these millions of jobs that some people are trying to say black industry captains had created millions of jobs. No, they did not. We've had a few black millionaires throughout the 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, and of course, with the advent of professional sports, now we got, multi-millionaire black athletes, and we have a few business moguls and things of that nature. But even today, they are not employing millions of black people. So what makes you think during the 1700s, no, let's take it back to the 1600s when they first started bringing enslaved Africans here. Now, there were free black colonists here as well, but very small community. Now, let's go back to the 1600s. It was a lot of black wealth being created in the 1600s. No. What about the 1700s? I know about Paul Coffey up there I think he was in Massachusetts. I know about him building that shipping empire that he built. I know, what was it, the 1800s? I know about C.J. Madam Walker and her beauty product line and all of that. But those were not enough businesses to employ millions of black people. And why we want to believe in these myths, well, I do know. And, I used to believe in them. So don't think, if you believe in those myths, don't think that I'm mocking you or anything. I'm not. You're a victim of bad information, just like I was. I was believing the same thing that I was hearing from the brothers. Oh, we had everything we needed, prior to integration, and Dr. King messed up a good thing, and which is total BS. But I was believing that BS. But I continue to seek out information. I continue to read books. I continue to read online platforms and encyclopedias and whatever I can get my hands on. I continue to read, and then I found out, you know what? That person that gave me that information about we had everything we needed before 1964 was a lie. It was a myth. Now, why do people tell those lies and myths? Well, it's either one or two things. It's either they were trying to get you to buy into their organization and saying all of these things to pump you up and get you full of pride. But I don't see any of those organizations that created millions of jobs. And we're talking about religious organizations, right? Okay. But then I guess we lie to ourselves because we just simply don't want to accept our miserable condition on the face of this planet, especially behind the enemy lines of USA Inc. We just simply don't want to believe it. And we need to pump our self-esteem up, so we create these fables and stories to make ourselves feel good. Well, that's the problem, is that it's a myth and it's a fable, and we did not have all these black businesses. Again, if you disagree with what I'm saying, well, it's not what I'm saying. If you disagree with the facts, then please post some counterfacts. Point me to some articles, point me to some research, point me to some books, provide some sources that black people had everything they needed, meaning jobs, okay? Because if you can, as you see in this picture, I have a black family that was part of the Great Migration. This picture is from 1915. It was a family that was fleeing the Jim Crow South, where most blacks were concentrated at, and moved north for jobs. Okay, you had several world wars, and so you had a need for labor, and so they were willing to give black people jobs then. But again, if all these black people were working for black businesses in the South, they would have had no need to move north for jobs, would they? So I want to pull up this article from the Black Past Remembered. You can go to www.blackpast.org. And this is the Great Migration, an article on the Great Migration from the period of 1915 to 1960. Okay, this is 4 years before the Civil Rights Act. And I'll get to what the Civil Rights Act actually did. I don't know why they call it integration. I don't know. When what it was really about is black people standing up and saying, you taking taxes from us, you sending our sons off to die in wars to protect America, and you're not going to tell me I can't use these public utilities. You're not going to tell me I can't use the public city pool. You're not going to tell me I got to ride on the back of the bus and get up out my seat so a white person can sit down. Okay, but I'll get to that. But let's just look at a time period. Let's look at 1865. That was when the so-called end of slavery, which was never ended. The 13th Amendment, which was passed in 1865, signed in or ratified by most of the states. The required number of states to make an amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The 13th Amendment has an exception clause that says that they could put you back into slavery if they first convict you of a crime. And that's when the black codes came up. That's the southern states, and even the northern states and out west, they would pass laws restricting the rights of black people and would target them with these little petty crimes to put them in jail and put them in prison. So from 1865, let's say all the way up to 1964, the passage of the Civil Rights Act. That's 99 years, right? That's 99 years from the so-called end of, let's just call it, pre-1865 slavery, and we're just in post-1865 slavery during this period. But there was a 100-year period, near a 99-year period. You mean to tell me that millions of black people came out of slavery and into Jim Crow, and during that time period, they was able to create all these great businesses that employed millions of black people to the point that they were self-sufficient. They didn't need to go outside of the community. Okay, so let's just look at the period from 1915 to 1960. The Great Migration, as it was known, was the mass movement of about 5 million Southern blacks to the North in between 1915 and 1960. During the initial wave, the majority of migrants moved to major northern cities such as Chicago, Illinois, Detroit, Michigan, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, New York. By World War II, the migrants continued to move north, but many of them headed west to Los Angeles, Oakland, San Francisco, California, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. The first large movement of blacks occurred during World War I, when 454,000 black Southerners moved north. In the 1920s, another 800,000 blacks left the South, followed by 398,000 blacks in the 1930s. Between 1940 and 1960, over 3,348,000 blacks left the South for the northern and western cities. Now, why did they leave the South? Was it because they couldn't take the heat no more? Was it because too many mosquitoes or something like that? Okay, why did they leave the South if they had all these jobs that was providing them all their needs? If we had all these black businesses for these millions of black people, why did they leave their families or move their entire families to the North? They did it because of jobs. That's why. So let me continue to read this. The economic motivations for migration were a combination of the desire to escape oppressive economic conditions in the South and the promise of greater prosperity in the North. Since their emancipation from slavery, Southern rural blacks had suffered in a plantation economy that offered little chance of advancement. While few blacks were lucky enough to purchase land, most were sharecroppers, tenant farmers, or farm laborers, barely subsiding from year to year. When World War I created a huge demand for workers in northern factories, many Southern blacks took this opportunity to leave the oppressive economic conditions in the South. So they moved north because the war created a need for labor. But let me ask you this. Did a bunch of black people go to banks and get the capital to open up factories to start producing what the United States military needed to fight the war? Were they getting government contracts to do the work so that they can then employ all these black people? No, it did not happen. Okay? Because of discrimination and racism. Yeah, we had a few black banks. Yeah, we had a few black successful insurance companies. We've had a few successful black businesses here and there. But let's not mistake a small business for, let's say, a national retail chain or a factory that's employing the entire town. Those things did not exist in the black community because of racism. Okay? In slavery, and never being made whole when they came out of slavery, never given their reparations, never given their 40 mules in an acre. So I want to know where all of this capital came from for them to create all these black businesses that created millions of jobs for all these black people, because, I just can't find them in the historical record. And it's all about the facts. It's not about proving somebody else wrong or making somebody look bad. No, it's all about giving out accurate, correct information. Because I understand a lot of people don't have time to do this research and whatnot. And so I hope that you would trust that I'm not going to lie to you. I have no reason to lie. Okay? How can you formulate a plan to get out of a situation when you don't have all the facts? Okay? How can you talk to me about our history and you want some alternative history? Stuff that's been passed down to you by black segregationists with a motive. Okay? So it goes on to say, the northern, let me back up for a minute. Says the northern demand for workers was a result of the loss of 5 million men who left to serve in the armed forces, as well as the restriction of foreign immigration. Some sectors of the economy were so desperate for workers at this time that they would pay for blacks to migrate north. Again, these are white businesses. These aren't black businesses. These are white factories. These are white industries that were so starved of labor that they paid for black people to move up there and take these jobs. Again, these black people would not have needed for white people to pay their way up north to get a job if we had all these jobs providing for black people in the South. Now, it goes on to say, let me back up, the northern demand for workers was a result of the loss of 5 million men who left to serve in the armed forces, as well as the restriction on foreign immigration. Some sectors of the economy were so desperate for workers at this time that they would pay for blacks to migrate north. The Pennsylvania Railroad needed workers so badly that it paid the travel expenses of 12,000 blacks. The Illinois Central Railroad, along with many steel mills, factories, and tanneries, similarly provided free railroad passes for blacks. World War I was the first time since emancipation that black labor was in demand outside of the agricultural South, and the economic promise was enough for many blacks to overcome substantial challenges to migrate because they didn't have money. Okay, if they had all these jobs from all these black businesses, they would have had some money to pay to move across the country. In addition to migrating for job opportunities, blacks also moved north in order to escape the oppressive conditions of the South. What oppressive condition? Lynchings, burning down your black business, burning down your communities, running you off your land. Some of the main social factors for migration included lynching, an unfair legal system, inequality in education, and denial of suffrage. The Great Migration, one of the greatest internal migrations in the history of the United States, forever changed the urban North, the rural South, and African America, and in many respects, the entire nation. I don't know what they meant by African America. I guess they meant Black America. But again, now let me give you some sources, because sources are important. It's great that blackpast.org provided documentation or citation for this information. Okay, something that I keep asking people for. If you claim that we had all these black businesses, all of these industries that was providing everything that we needed for our people, all right, then, give me the sources. That's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm asking for. I ain't talking about no sermon or no speech from no black orator, from a black pastor or whatever. I don't care about, I want the facts. I'm interested in documentable facts, not sayings, okay? The sources are James M. Gregory, The Southern Diaspora, How the Great Migration of Black and White Southerners Transformed America, published by Chapel Hill University of North Carolina Press in 2005. Florette Henry, Black Migration Movement North, 1900 to 1920, Garden City Anchor Press, 1975. Carol Marks, Farewell, We're Good and Gone, The Great Migration, Bloomington, Indiana University Press, 1989. Alfredine Harrison, Black Exodus, The Great Migration from the American South, Jackson University Press of Mississippi, 1991. The African American Mosaic, a Library of Congress resource guide for the study of Black history and culture. And they give a link to loc.gov and some of the exhibits. And I will post the link to this article for you in the description. So that's all I'm saying. Stop lying to our people. It frustrates me to no end, especially since I run a Black radio station and I'm not trying to control the words that's coming out of the mouths on the Black Talk Radio Network. But like tonight, when I hear especially young people repeating this BS lie that integration destroyed Black businesses and destroyed the Black community. Again, I will concede that it did destroy our Black schools, and it led to a mass layoff of Black teachers who really did care about their Black students. So I'll give you that. But that other stuff you talking about is nonsense. It's not based in reality. It's based in mythology. It's a shame. It's just a shame that we live in an information age and we're so willing to believe these myths. Again, I understand some of it has to do with low self-esteem, and we just don't want to believe that we've been, under this oppression for so long. And so, I just have to challenge it on my broadcasts and podcasts and things of that nature. So again, my challenge to you, if you disagree with this article, if you disagree with my thoughts, post your sources. Post your sources. Post the book, the name of the book, the authors. Don't point me to no speaker giving you some rhetoric if it ain't based on no facts. Okay? History is history. And we ain't accepting no alternative history. At least I'm not. I can't speak for other people, but I'm not accepting any alternative history. I'm not going to lie to myself, and I'm not going to lie to my children. If we had everything that we needed, for you to sit up there and insult Black people and say, oh, but as soon as they could go shop at Woolworth, oh, they went and spent all their money with the white men. Again, there was no Black Woolworth. Okay? There was no Black Ford Motor Company. We did have some Black entrepreneurs all through the centuries, but not enough to employ millions of people. Our primary employer has always been white people, and it remains so to this day. Now, how do we turn that around? I would point you to Yvette Carneal's YouTube channel. I know we hear a lot of people talking about buy black and $1 trillion and spending power, and that's largely a myth too. Okay? And she's done some great videos on that. So I'm going to direct you to her for those questions. All right. But in terms of attacking Dr. King and using Malcolm X to attack Dr. King, look, Malcolm X wasn't always in his own mind. Whenever he's saying somebody else's name taught me this and I speak what they said, he ain't speaking for himself. But once he came into his own mind and he could speak for himself, he was supportive of Dr. King. In fact, the two men were becoming very, very close in their ideology. Let me throw that picture up of them. So stop using Malcolm X when he was in the NOI to bash Martin Luther King. All right? Because it was a reason that Elijah Muhammad was sending Malcolm X out there to attack Black people. And that's what happened. Let's just be real about it. But once Malcolm X came out of that, what did he say about Selma when he went down to Selma, Alabama, when they were marching for voting rights? Okay, not marching to be close to white people or anything. No, they were marching to make the United States respect their American citizenship. You making me pay taxes. You say I'm a citizen by way of the 14th Amendment. I'm born here in America. Why you treat me like I'm not a citizen? No, I demand my rights. Nobody gave anybody nothing. Black people rose up in various ways and demanded their rights. So this nonsense about the government gave them rights, no, they did not. Okay? These people pushed the U.S. government to do what they should have been doing in the first place. But what did Malcolm X say about Martin Luther King Jr. when he was down there in Selma? Malcolm X said that I really want Dr. King to know I did not come to make his job hard. I was thinking that I was going to make his job easier, because once white folks see what the alternative is, then they will listen to Dr. King. He also said that they should give Dr. King everything he wants, because what he's asking for is right and it's just. Okay? So stop using Malcolm X when he was under the influence of Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam to bash Dr. Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement. Okay, Dr. King, both of these men, but Dr. King gave his life. How dare you smear this man, saying that integration was all about being like white people. I wanted to snuggle up to white people. I mean, who voluntarily wants to sit at the back of the bus, and when all the seats are full and a white person get on the bus, they can just make you get up? Okay, you miss those days, you long for those days. Or if you were lucky enough to be able to buy a train ticket and you wanted to travel to the West, maybe to Seattle or something like that, and they made you ride in an open railroad car like a hobo or something, and you couldn't sit in the railroad cars made for people, with seats and food and stuff like that. Okay, you want to go back to those days? Do you want to go back to the days to where you had to buy a book telling you where it was safe for you to buy gas so that you could travel cross country or to another state? There was a green book that listed all of the gas stations in the country that would allow black people to buy gas. Okay, can you imagine doing that today? And you know doggone well you wouldn't accept it. So why don't you stop acting like these people, our ancestors, should have accepted it? Okay? Their tax money paid for them roads. Their tax money paid for them railroads. Their free labor built the railroads. Then you even had a few black inventors that helped improve the railroad engine. So how dare some immigrant by the name of Marcus Garvey come to the United States and tell black people we don't deserve to ride in the same railroad car as white people because the black man ain't build the railroad. He don't know nothing about what black people built in this country. And then got the nerve to be working with white nationalists to the point that a white nationalist will dedicate his book to you and write you while you in prison. I know y'all don't want to hear it. Some of y'all are very sensitive to these idols that have been built up. But I am a student of history. I like to read. I like to uncover what they don't want you to know or what's not available on the surface. Okay? So stop using Malcolm X to bash Dr. King. Dr. King made a great sacrifice for you, and you enjoying many of those benefits. Now, let's talk about what did the Civil Rights Act of 1964 exactly do? So we're going to go to YouTube, we're going to go to the internet, pull up a search engine, and we're going to type in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This is all the Civil Rights Act did. It said the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which was enacted on July the 2nd, 1964, is a landmark civil rights and U.S. labor law in the United States that outlaws discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. So so what? You ready to give up those protections? That's what you telling me? That's what you telling me. Did you think that it was good for black people to be discriminated against based on their race? Do you think it was good for black women to be discriminated against based on their sex? Okay, and then again, black people paid taxes. First of all, black people built America with their free labor. Black people helped secure America by serving in its armed forces. Black people further maintain America with their taxes. But you're telling me that these people should have just settled for second-class citizenship. In order for you to sell that BS to us, you make up this garbage about, oh, we had everything we needed. The myth of the black business empire. Stop. Just stop it. Okay? Because you're wrong. You're wrong. A Civil Rights Act also provided for voter protection. Well, that was later with the Voters' Rights Act. I think that was 1968. I'm not sure. But that is when you went to vote, they could no longer make you pay a poll tax, or they couldn't give you something to read and test your literacy before you could vote. And just all the stuff they put black people through just so they could exercise their rights. So that eliminated all of that. So I know many black people, and the majority of all Americans do not vote, but many of us still do. All right? So just because you don't take advantage of certain rights and privileges that have been bestowed upon all citizens due to the work of people like Dr. King and the sacrifices of those who worked with him, and of Malcolm X, again, who moved very close to Martin Luther King's position, and Dr. King moved very close to Malcolm's position on human rights and taking the United States to the UN. Okay? So just time out for all of this alternative history. I know y'all like to pick at white people about their alternative facts or whatnot, but y'all need to stop with the black alternative facts. Do your research. Read. It's very important. All right. This has been Scotty Reed with a Black Talk Radio News commentary. If you like this channel, please follow it. You could click the little bell on our YouTube channel. You'll get alerts whenever something is published. You can follow our podcast at blacktalkradionetwork.com. Sign up to be on a subscription. Also, join our social media community, which is btrcommunity.com. It's just $24 a year. That's less than $2 a month, or it's exactly $2 a month. That is how we're trying to sustain the black organization that we have set up to produce independent black media. And we desperately need your support. Thank you.